Well, hey there. Welcome back to the Business of Ergonomics podcast. I'm Darcie Jaremey, board certified professional ergonomist. Welcome to the Business of Ergonomics podcast. I'm your host, Darcie Jaremey. I'm a board certified professional ergonomist with over 15 years of experience delivering ergonomics programs to employers of all different types. In this podcast, I share what other healthcare professionals are already doing and being with ergonomics assessments and how to land those clients that you dream of. Without further ado, let's jump into this episode right now. Today, I need to talk to you about something that has been circulating in our field lately because, quite frankly, it's affecting how employers understand their obligations, and it's affecting the credibility of the ergonomics professionals who are trying to build legitimate practices around real client relationships, their needs, providing value, all the good stuff that brought you into this field. Because if I've mentioned it once, I've mentioned it 1,000s, but it bears repeating. It's not a matter of if an injury is going to happen anymore. It's a matter of when. Look at the statistics. There is tons of MSD. Look at the statistics. Musculoskeletal disorders are one of the most common types of injury that affect workplaces today. What are we doing for it? How are we combating this issue? Well, one thing's not helping is what I'm going to be getting into today. It's adding to the confusion, the mistakes, wasted resources, and really just bogging down an industry that could provide so much value, but we're just tripping on these non-issues. Have I got your attention? Awesome. So let's dive into it. There is a claim going around that employers face a December 2026 deadline to complete home office ergonomic audit. There's a claim going around, and it's that employers face a December 2026 deadline to complete home office ergonomic audits under a new OSHA framework for remote workers. I've seen this in articles. In fact, in June, I dug deep into what the heck is going on here, because if there's information, then ergonomists need to know it. I've seen it shared on social media too. It sounds plausible, right? Because after all, OSHA has our best interests in mind. However, here's the tripping point, the shock and awe. It's not true. It is not true. There is no December 2026 OSHA deadline. There's no new home office safety framework. I checked. OSHA's position on home office inspections and employer liability hasn't changed since 2000. The guidance that exists today says the exact same thing that it did 25 years ago, a quarter century ago. So what the heck is going on? Here's the trick. Furniture company blogs. This is where the fake news is coming from. This is what I like to call using marketing for evil. Are we providing value? Are we selling a chair that could help our workplaces? No. Are we just sharing So are we providing value? Are we really helping our workplaces get to the root cause of their injury? Or are these companies using something flashy to sell a chair that may not be the reason why their employers? Or are they selling a chair that may or may not be the reason why their employees are in that pain and discomfort? Something to think about here. Ergonomic equipment vendors, not all of them, but some of them are using this information about a non-existent December 2026 deadline so that it can make more sales of chairs that may not even be the most ergonomic too, which makes matters worse, in my humble opinion. So let's take a step back and consider if a chair is actually going to be the silver bullet for many of the issues that we may see as someone doing office ergonomics assessments. So let's take a second and really reflect on this. Is a chair, whether it's the best ergonomic chair or the worst, going to fix the root cause of a workstation just being too high for somebody? No. Is it going to look at solving someone's issue where they're reaching too far to the side? No. And I admit these are very simplistic scenarios that you might see out there doing office ergonomics assessments. But it boils down to if someone is experiencing any sort of discomfort before just jumping to a really cool and sexy type of chair, let's take a step back and look through the situation going on in their workplace. And this is really the million-dollar question. As ergonomics professionals, this is where we provide the biggest value, biggest bang for the buck for our employers. We can look through all of the confusion, all of the tripping hazards, so to speak, and come up with a really good root cause analysis that may not even come to the chair. So back to this issue that we're talking about. Are chairs even warranted in the first place? No. Are organizations that are selling chairs, could they benefit from making more chair sales? Absolutely. But us as ergonomics professionals, we know that in not every situation that we are going to get into will a chair be warranted. So even if we were looking at this logically, why would a chair company be selling this idea of a December 2026 deadline for OSHA analysis? Well, in reality, they should be promoting ergonomics. Because if they're promoting ergonomics and having a sound solution, then of course a chair may be one of the suitable solutions. Is it going to be a chair 100% of the time? Obviously not. This is why we're talking here. However, a thorough ergonomics solution that looks at every type of option, whether it's an engineering like a chair, administrative, behavioral, or personal protective equipment that looks at all those categories is going to be that much more valuable. And I will go out on a limb and say if chair companies are promoting this December 2026 solution, they are advertising to a segment of the population that just don't know what's going on. They are advertising on a scarcity mindset, on shock and awe to try to get people that are really concerned about getting fined to buy a $1,500 chair. Is this doing anything beneficial? Absolutely not. Will some of these chairs actually do more harm for that individual? Absolutely. And especially if those companies cheap out and get like a $200 chair off of Amazon or something like that, that is just basically making landfill. After like the next 2 years, these chairs are going to be going to landfill because they just don't have the specifications that's going to hold up or the warranty that's going to hold up over time. So really, this is what I don't like to see out there. These manipulative marketing techniques based on lies to get people to buy something that they don't actually need. But I digress. These organizations are benefiting from manufactured urgency around compliance. And in terms of compliance, employers just want to do, in terms of compliance, I feel that employers are trying to not only look at profit, they are dressing up marketing as regulation. And it's working because it sounds legitimate. Remote work injuries are real. Ergonomics risk in home offices are real too. So when someone says OSHA is cracking down, people believe it because there is so much confusion about OSHA in the first place. And y'all, have you ever gone to the OSHA website? Me, as someone who has been working and looking at OSHA for like 15, 20 years, it is still confusing to try to figure out where information is. So can you imagine someone who has all these other responsibilities go to OSHA and try to figure out about this compliance issue and whether or not they're going to get fined and what's the result of this? They're not going to have time for that. So that's really what I want to address today. This isn't reasonable, it's not fair, and it's causing more issues for the workplace. And us as ergonomists, we have to stand on guard essentially to ensure that this isn't being promoted. And we have to be that touch point, building that relationship with employers to say, hey, if you have any issues, come to me. I'll help you. If you need to buy new chairs, I can be your go-to person. Right? Isn't that so good? It's so good. That's the difference between one transactional type of assessment and then a value added type of relationship that can be mutually beneficial for years and years and years. Now, on that point, I do want to talk about how you can get in the know about the types of equipment out there. And I've mentioned this before, but I just got to dive into it again because one of the biggest stumbling blocks that I see ergonomics professionals make is that they don't know what they don't know. And when I talked about the recommendation hierarchy, we have engineering, we have engineering, we have administrative, behavioral, and personal protective equipment. And of course, the most valuable solution that we can offer is going to be engineering. You're engineering out the ergonomic risk. But when it comes to solutions in the office, what can we offer if you don't know what you don't know? And that's why us at Ergonomics Help, we've created a new equipment database. And one of the biggest things that I love about it is that you can see what my favorite products are so that you don't have to guess about the best type of scenario to use a product in. You can ask me, and you have all the different specs of many. We have like 300 types of ergonomic equipment out there so you can compare. So no more are you going down the rabbit hole of the internet, the Amazons, the other places to buy ergonomic equipment. No more are you diving down into that anymore. Now you have a database that you can look into. This is available through Accelerate the Business of Ergonomics. You can definitely dive into that now and head to our website to get more information about that because this is so cool. It's helping ergonomics everywhere. And really, it's so cool. It's helping ergonomics professionals around the world. And the reason why I love it so much is that it is cutting out the crazy marketing stuff and getting to the issues that ergonomists need to know. So good. Now, back to this whole thing about OSHA. What I want to do today is that I want to walk you through exactly what OSHA does and does not require around remote worker ergonomics so that you can have the accurate picture. And then I want you to make the real business case for this work, okay? Because we don't need fake things that don't actually exist to justify good ergonomics or just the purchase of a chair that no one needed in the first place. The actual data is compelling and cannot be ignored, especially if somebody is getting duped by this marketing. They need to know the facts, right? They need to know. You got to share it as that ergonomics professional too. That's a conversation for another day, really. But I'm just going to touch on it. And as an ergonomics professional, you have all the skills and you have all the resources. But a common issue for ergonomics professionals is that their cities simply don't know that they exist. So what that means is that it is so easy for employers to get caught into these gimmicky sales issues because they don't have that true relationship with an ergonomist that can help them along the way, okay? So this is why building a marketing system, even if you're doing ergonomics as a side hustle, is so important because if you're not representing yourself, then your clients can actually fall into this issue of buying not good chairs and causing more problems and wasting more money. That's why you have to be marketing. That's why you have to be marketing yourself as an ergonomist. You simply cannot afford not to do this. So let me start about OSHA, okay? I'm going to peel away the layers of the onion about what OSHA has actually said in writing about home offices. Yep, I did all the dirty research here because it's not ambiguous. It's actually documented. OSHA distinguishes between two categories of remote work environments. The first is a home office, where an employee performs office work activities at home using equipment like computers and phones. You know what I'm saying? They're filing, they're keyboarding, they're researching on the computer. It's a home office. The second is a home-based work site. This is where an employee performs manufacturing or production operations for an employer at home. It could be like industrial sewing, woodworking, packaging, etc. That's a home-based work site, and the rules are different. For home office spaces specifically, OSHA has issued formal guidance that says 3 things specifically. OSHA will not conduct inspections of employees' home offices. Boom, right? Already we are knocking that marketing standpoint about we are already putting down that marketing issue that are getting people to buy chairs. So the first one is that OSHA will not conduct inspections of employees' home offices. The second is that OSHA will not hold employers liable for employees' home offices. And OSHA does not expect employers to inspect an employee's home office. So read that again. So let that kind of sink in. They will not inspect, they will not hold liable, does not expect inspection. This is not a loophole or an interpretation. This is OSHA's stated, documented policy. This guidance has been consistent since at least 1999. The official OSHA letter of interpretation from 1999 says exactly this. The more recent guidance says this. There has been no rule change, no new framework, no updated standard that alters this position. If you see an article that says OSHA is cracking down on home office ergonomics, that article needs a citation. Ask for the specific OSHA standard. Ask for the rule number. Ask for the Federal Register notice. It won't exist because there isn't one, and this is a marketing ploy. Now, here's where I want to add a subtlety. Because the story doesn't stop there, the absence of inspection, authority, and employer liability for home offices does not mean employers have zero responsibility for their remote workers. They do. That responsibility just comes from somewhere different than the specific ergonomic standard for home offices. It comes from the general duty clause. Section 5A1 of the Occupational Safety and Health Act is known as the General Duty Clause. It says that every employer has a general duty to furnish to each of their employees employment and a place of employment which are free from recognized hazards that are causing or likely to cause death or serious physical harm. The duty applies regardless of where the work is performed, including a home office. The OSHA Act, the Occupational Safety and Health Act applies to work performed by an employee in any workplace within the United States, including a workplace located in the employee's home. Employers are responsible for complying with the OSHA, complying with the Occupational Safety and Health Act and with safety and health standards, even when the workplace is in a designated area of an employee's home. And that's from November 1999. So employers do have a general obligation to not expose their remote workers to recognized hazards. Ergonomic hazards are explicitly recognized by OSHA too. That means the general duty clause is theoretically applicable. That means the general duty clause is theoretically applicable. That means the general duty clause is theoretically applicable to ergonomic risk in remote work. But here's the practical picture. OSHA has said it will not inspect home offices. But here's the practical picture. OSHA has said that it will not inspect home offices and will not hold employers liable for them. The general duty clause sets a broad principle. The specific home office guidance carves out a specific exemption from inspection and liability. Both things are true at the same time. What OSHA recommends, and this is a critical word, is that employers provide information to employees on their proper setup of home workstations, chair and desk ergonomics, maybe even getting a remote ergonomics assessment. Many of our members of the Accelerate Business of Ergonomics program actually do this process for remote employers, and it works really well. So many workplaces are seeing the value and return on investment of doing stuff like this. It's already working. So for home office ergonomics, the legal framework looks like this. There's broad duty to protect workers from recognized hazards via the general duty clause, with a specific carve-out that removes OSHA inspection and enforcement for home offices specifically. Obviously, because it's like, you don't want the government in your home if you don't have to, right? Think about that. So they don't expect it, they don't mandate it. They don't expect it, they don't mandate it either. They do not cite So that's the actual regulatory picture. It's subtle, right? It's not a crackdown. It's not a crackdown by any means. It's not a new framework either. So you can see what I'm saying about fake news. It's been this way for literally 2 decades. However, and this is where it gets genuinely important for employers to pay attention, there are 2 other areas where remote work creates real enforceable obligation that has nothing to do with a fake OSHA deadline. So, record keeping, this is the first obligation. If your organization is required to keep records of work-related injuries and illnesses under OSHA, those record-keeping requirements do not stop at the front door of your building. An injury sustained at a home office is considered work-related and recordable if 2 conditions are met. Number 1, it occurred while the employee was being paid to perform work, and number 2, it is directly related to the performance of work duties rather than to the general home environment. So what does this mean? If an employee develops carpal tunnel syndrome from typing on a keyboard at their home workstation during work hours, that is a recordable event. If they trip over their dog on the way to the kitchen, that is not a work-related injury. The question is whether the injury arose from work activities and the work environment, not from the general conditions living in a home. So employers are responsible to keep records of work-related injuries and illnesses, whether an injury occurred in a factory, in a home office, or elsewhere, as long as the injury is work-related and meets the recordability criteria of OSHA. This is not a trivial obligation, okay? If an organization is managing a remote workforce and not thinking about whether home office injuries are being captured on the 300 log, they have a compliance gap that has nothing to do with any fake deadline and everything to do with existing record-keeping requirements. The second obligation that we need to dive into is workers' compensation. Yes, I know. This is a big issue, and it's something that we need to dive into. Workers' compensation does not have an exemption for home offices. Sirens blazing, right? Huge issue here. If an employee is injured while performing work duties at home, a workstation, if an employee is injured while performing work duties at home, a workers' comp claim is generally going to be valid. State workers' comp laws apply regardless of where the work is performed. The research on this is kind of shocking. A survey conducted in 2020 found that 41% of Americans reported new or increased shoulder, back, and wrist pain since they started working from home. No surprise there. More recent data puts this figure at 61.2% of home-based workers reporting MSD discomfort while working from home. Those are not hypothetical injuries. Those are real claims. And the indirect costs of musculoskeletal injuries, the lost productivity, the replacement coverage, the administrative burden runs 3 to 5 times the cost of a direct claim. These things are so expensive, and most workplaces are completely in the dark until it happens. They are so costly, and it doesn't just go away after a year. These are on a company's books for multiple years. Not only that, it affects the morale at work, the people's enjoyment. So this is a really big issue. So here's something that's really this is something that's really important to think about. Companies that have been thinking about remote ergonomics as a compliance checkbox are sitting on real financial exposure. The injuries are happening. And as I started off with this episode saying, and as I started off, we know that injuries are happening, the statistics are out there. It's not a matter of if an injury is going to happen, it's a matter of when. So you as an ergonomics professional have to position yourself in a way that they can find you when an injury happens. And they don't just go for these shortcut solutions like a new chair, because a new chair isn't going to help carpal tunnel syndrome. An ergonomics assessment that's very thorough from someone who is experienced will always help. The claims are coming too. So it's something to really consider here. The third obligation is the accommodation law. This one comes up less often in ergonomics conversations, but it matters. If an employer provides ergonomic equipment or workstation support to office-based employees, but denies similar support to remote workers with the same needs, they may be creating a discrimination exposure. What? And if a remote employee requests a reasonable accommodation for a disability or a musculoskeletal condition, and that accommodation is denied, the organization may be looking at an Americans with Disabilities Act violation. So ergonomics intersects this in ways many HR teams are not thinking about. None of this requires a fake OSHA deadline to be important. The record-keeping exposure is real. The workers' comp exposure is real too. The accommodation risk is real, and the injury data. 61% of home-based workers with musculoskeletal discomfort means the probability of these risks materializing, and it's not just like theory, ivory tower stuff. It's actually happened. So as we get through this episode, so to conclude here, let's look at the big picture here. And let me come back to the fake deadline articles, because I think it's worth understanding where this comes from and why it matters beyond just being accurate. The sources, when you trace them, are remarkably consistent. Furniture company blogs, ergonomic equipment vendors, training product sellers, organizations that profit directly from employers feeling like they have an eminent compliance obligation. They're dressing up marketing as regulation to create urgency. And it's effective because remote work ergonomics is a real issue. And so the fabricated regulation sounds plausible, right? Here's the harm it does. When someone with decision-making authority at a company reads one of these articles, makes a phone call, gets a sales pitch, invests in a program, and later discovers the regulatory urgency was manufactured, they lose trust in anyone who tells them ergonomics compliance is important. They feel so too, and who wouldn't? And that cynicism doesn't stay contained to the vendor that misled them. It spreads to the whole industry. Our field already works hard to be taken seriously. I've been in this field for 20 years. I've been in this field for 20 years, and I say that from my heart. When vendors manufacture fake regulations to move product, it creates all of us to look like we're in the fear-mongering business, but we're not. It makes it harder for legitimate ergonomics professionals like you to have credible conversations with clients about real risks and real solutions. If you see one of these articles circulating, push back, really dig in and ask for the citations. And if the source is OSHA.gov, then it's a regulation. Anything else, it's just like AI slop. The real business case for remote ergonomics does not need manufactured urgency. 61% of home-based workers, as I mentioned, they have MSD discomfort from their setup. That number, cited accurately, is more compelling than any fake deadline. The workers' comp exposure is real. The record-keeping obligation is real. The injury data is real. It's how this conversation with the workplace should start in the first place. So, if there's no mandatory audit requirement, if OSHA isn't going to inspect home offices, what should employers actually be doing? And how does this translate into what ergonomics consultants should be offering? Let me give you the practical picture. First, a remote workstation self-assessment program, OSHA, recommends employers provide information on home office setup. That recommendation is best operationalized as a structured self-assessment tool. I don't really want to talk about this. Here's what I want you to walk away with. There is no December 2026 OSHA deadline for Here's what I want you to walk away with. First of all, there's no OSHA 2026 deadline for home office audits. There is no new remote work ergonomics framework. OSHA's position on home offices hasn't changed since 2000. When you see articles claiming otherwise, They're likely full of it, and they are marketing disguised as regulation. We want to hold these people accountable. Ask for the citation. Check for the source. It's crazy that people are still falling for this, but there's such a low level of ergonomics knowledge out there that this is happening. That's an opportunity for you. The real picture is this. Home office injuries are recordable. Workers' comp doesn't have a home office exemption either. So if something happens at the home, work is paying for it. The general duty clause applies broadly. 61% of the indirect costs of those injuries run 3 to 5 times of the direct costs. It's huge. So the business case is real, it's evidence-based, and it doesn't need any help from some manufactured urgency. So I did mention a couple of resources in this episode. I mentioned Accelerate, the Business of Ergonomics, specifically our equipment database, where you can look into that and see what the most latest office ergonomics products are. I have my own favorites selected in there. So if you're absolutely new to the ergonomics world and you need to know what chairs are good, what keyboards and mice are good, and we're looking at really alternative types of products out there, you can just go in there and see the things that I recommend. These are the things that I have tested over the years, and I give like a good thumbs up. So if you're starting from scratch, we have resources for you to help these people out there. Because as we know, this marketing ploy is a result that there's such an opportunity for ergonomics, and ergonomists aren't representing themselves in the way they need to, and there's a real urgency in the market to be doing something. So to me, those are green lights for you to get started, to take that leap of faith forward, and absolutely ignore all this fake news BS. Get out there, provide value, build those relationships, and do good, consistent ergonomics assessments that you can make a really good income from. I can help you get there. Go to ergonomicshelp.com. I'm going to provide information on getting involved with Accelerate in the notes. You can sign up anytime, and I'm there to help you. So if you want to get started in your career doing ergonomics services, sign up to Accelerate today, and I can help you get started. So good. All right, y'all. Take care, and I'll talk to you soon.